Welcome back to Different Beat. My name is Elizabeth.
I'm Tim.
And today we will be covering the great new achievement that is Battlefield Hardline. This is a franchise that I don't have the greatest experience with. I should say that up front. My main Battlefield experience, and this will be offensive to some people, was actually back on the Xbox 360 and the Battlefield Modern Combat demo, which actually became infamous because it allowed you to play a certain level with unlimited amounts of times. So they ended up... There was a whole kerfluffle about the demo because people were just using the demo to get the full experience, and I was one of them. Even though I don't generally play it, I was so hooked on my 360 at the time, I had taken advantage of it. So before that, before Hardline, that was really all I had. So I kind of went in wondering, is this going to be like Call of Duty? Because a lot of the game space right now, there's a real line drawn between Call of Duty fans, Battlefield fans, and then you have like Halo fans on the other side. They're like, you guys can calm down. We can all live together. They're all good games. But then there's those two groups. So I really didn't know what to expect heading in, and I gotta say, after playing the whole game, we actually we played the game via share play.
Yes,
we did back-to-back levels. Or we went alternating levels, and there's 10 episodes, so we each played 5, and we watched the other 5, so we made sure we got the whole story. This did not win me over as a fan for the franchise going forward. I got to admit that walking out of that game, I made some pretty bold claims about the Order 1886 in our last video, and I gotta say, the Order 1886 is a masterpiece. Compared to Battlefield Hardline. That might be the most cliche, awful story I've ever experienced. And that may be meant to be that way, but I'll let Tim here talk in a second. But I gotta point this out. We were in Mission 4. We saw the opening cutscene, and something happened. And we're not gonna go into spoilers, but Tim was like, oh, come on! It's totally clear this is gonna happen! And no lie, about 60 minutes later, at the end of Chapter 4, it totally happens. It's not just that one thing. That one moment, though, totally encapsulated the entire experience as far as the story went. It was so mind-numbingly bad.
It's true. So, alright, Battlefield Hardline... Let's just put it this way. Alright, so now my experience with Battlefield in the past is I don't really have any. I mean, I played some of the ones way back in the day. I've sort of been out of the Battlefield game for a long time, though. I typically don't play games like Call of Duty or military shooters, primarily because they just don't really interest me. And, not to hate on anybody who likes those kind of games, I'm just not one of those people who like those games, typically. So, actually, way back when this game was announced, I liked the new idea of the whole, cops and criminals thing as opposed to it being military. But honestly, the way it was pulled off really disappointed me. I mean, what I expected from Battlefield Hardline was like a lot more like big city Vice type action with high stakes crime. Things like heists and, like real adrenaline stuff, not a bunch of drugs and meth heads and drug rings, And I really think that's where it totally disappointed me, as I was expecting more high-profile crime and not just a drug war. And on top of that also is the story, as Beth said, it was completely cliche. It's like I don't want to come across as totally negative on this game, but I was telling Beth that when we finished playing Battlefield Hardline, we were talking at the time, and I was like, I'm really honestly digging deep here to find something I could compliment this game on. And I've got nothing. I mean, it's not a terrible game technically from like a technological perspective. It runs okay. I don't think we encountered any sort of technical issues or glitches. I mean, yeah, there's some really stupid clipping when you like pin an enemy down to the ground to arrest them and their head goes right through a desk, but whatever. That sort of thing is passable. I mean, it shouldn't happen as often as it does.
That mechanic is seriously broken. The handcuff mechanic, I get why it's like, we can't have our cops be just total scumbags, every one of them. So we gotta have a method so you don't just go around killing everyone.
Yeah.
Well, Visceral, your method to fix it wasn't a fix, because it is one of the most broken mechanics I've seen since Akuma in Street Fighter 2 back in the day. I mean, damn, it's ridiculous.
Your unlimited supply of handcuffs is quite ridiculous.
And you combine that with the vision cone. I mean, there's vision cones in all kinds of games. In the last generation, though, developers have found a way to give vision cones, but still make them, the enemies, the AI, seem like at least plausible in whether or not they see you. This, though, reeks of Metal Gear Solid 1 on the original PlayStation, where it's like, they have a very set cone, and they do not see anything outside of it. You can stand just off to the side of them and walk up and cuff someone with no issue, and their buddy will be standing 2 feet off to the side where it's clear they can see you out of their peripheral, but they just don't, because they have that set vision and they do not deviate from it at all. But it breaks the immersion in so many ways, because it's like, there's just this gulf of like, these people clearly look like people, but they're clearly not, because they just don't, their eyes clearly don't work. I mean, they are 2 little cameras and they are pointing at one area and only that area, and have no peripheral vision whatsoever.
Yes, the enemy AI is totally stupid. The hit detection for most of the guns, especially in the last, I don't know why it seemed like the last missions especially were really bad. But it's like you're sitting there and you're pumping bullets right into guys in your crosshairs, and they're not even taking damage or acting like they're taking damage. They're just totally tanking all your bullets on most of them. It was really odd. I'm not sure if it was just like my fault, like maybe the recoil on my guns was so bad, but it really seemed to be a problem there on those last couple missions. Game, not bad as far as the technical package goes. Storyline completely under-delivered. Super cliche, no surprises, no twists or turns that you didn't see coming from a mile away. Every character in that game was pretty much detestable.
I agree. Every single one was pretty awful. It's like, as each new character came in, you're like constantly hoping, it's like, maybe this character will be someone I can like. And they just kept getting worse and worse. And I think this is epitomized, I believe it was Chapter 8. And you'll know when you get there, when you get locked up and a certain thing happens, you meet one of the characters from, let's just say, the South, and you're like, oh, they're really going there. They're just hitting every cliche button they can. And it's like, oh, just to let by Chapter 8, I was like just begging for the game to end, because it was just so awful. I mean, I say it's not fair, because there are worse games out there, but I mean, the experience for me was nothing but an unfun ride the whole way through.
Yeah.
Nothing about it was good in an enjoyable sense.
Would I spend money on Battlefield Hardline? No, I would not.
No.
I would not spend money on this game.
I cannot recommend it. If you wanted a Battlefield, from everything I've seen and read, it's like I have to suggest Battlefield 4. It has, it's cheaper. It seems like the community there is better. It's actually better on a technical level. Like, it's got higher resolution. The frames hold better from everything I've read. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you're going to go somewhere for Battlefield, I can't imagine Battlefield 4 is worse of an experience than this. Not to mention, whoever did the sound design, you really need to rethink it, because when you're Desert Eagle and 50 caliber Magnum sound like a 9mm, it hurts the soul. Yes, these are stupidly powerful guns. No one would really want to use these things, and I get that. But if you're going to put them in your game, let it sound like the cannon it is. That 50 caliber needs to sound like a 50 caliber, not a 9mm.
And see, that goes... Okay, so one of the mechanics of the game is, as you perform certain things, like the more people you arrest as opposed to kill, evidence that you find, increases your rank in the game. And the higher the rank you are, the more weapons you unlock and things, and like abilities for your weapons, like silencers and different scopes and things. The problem is, though, I mean, it was we worked so hard in the first half of the game to unlock the Desert Eagle and the 44 Magnum that because we just love those guns. And I mean, what's the point of a first-person shooter if not to just have fun with the guns you have? I mean, that's the whole point, right? Mm-hmm. So we get them and are just immediately disappointed. Put on the Desert Eagle, start shooting people with it. It's insanely powerful, but it sounds like a 9mm. It has no guts to it whatsoever. Because when you're shooting this big hand cannon, it's just like tack, 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 you know? It was so underwhelming. And they're like, okay, well maybe the 44 Magnum is going to be a little bit better. It's not, though. It's really not.
No.
Sadly, the two guns we were looking forward to using in the campaign the most, both were pretty underwhelming. Now, as far as multiplayer goes, I am not too familiar with multiplayer for Battlefield games typically because, again, I don't play them very often. I will say this, though. I did spend some time playing the multiplayer in Hardline, and I really don't think you'd be missing much out there. I mean, it actually seems like there's less to offer in Hardline's multiplayer than in previous Battlefields. Because in previous Battlefields, you could get tanks and planes and helicopters and stuff like that, and it was much larger in scope. Whereas Battlefield Hardline's multiplayer is much smaller, and the matches last a ridiculously long time. But these matches don't really have any variance to them or anything. It's just like with the one I was playing, it was just people killing people, and it took forever. I mean, I was on that match for like a half hour, almost, and there wasn't any variation to it. There's no vehicle spawns. There was no heavy artillery, at least that I could find anywhere on the map. Now, granted, I maybe just didn't find it. But it really seemed like in terms of multiplayer, it was sort of a step back from what other Battlefields have to offer.
I can't comment. I am a person that likes PvE. I like co-op. I do not like competitive multiplayer. I don't like it in the MMO sphere there. I don't like it in shooters. When we do play shooters, we play stuff like Halo in co-op mode. I step back, and he'll play Halo with his other friends, but I do not play competitive. So I can't really comment on that aspect and whether it's good or not, so I'll wait it. What I will say, though, is I watched one match. It lasted about 25 minutes, and by the 12th minute, I was wanting to sleep. And I was watching the team that won. So it wasn't like they were doing bad and lost. It was like, it was so an interesting team. But again, that may be what people are wanting there, so I'm not going to say it's bad, because that may be exactly what you're looking for. I just don't know, because I don't get it. It doesn't click with me.
Yeah. And again, it was something I had to try for the sake of, I didn't really feel like we could thoroughly review this game unless I tried the multiplayer too. And again, I mean, if you're a fan of the series and that you're interested in the new direction it's going, then, give it a shot. But I'm not going to recommend this game to anybody, to anyone, I don't think. So, I mean, to cut to the chase, if I had to give Battlefield Hardline a rating, it gets 1.5 stars. And that's only because technically it was a smooth game. Other than that, it really disappointed in every other way.
Weirdly enough, I'm going to go ahead and say be the higher ranks. I'll give it a 2 because it did function. It's like, it worked through share play. It didn't have a lot of quick time events. It didn't have a lot of stuff that I hate about modern day gaming, like, forced walking section.
It did have forced walking section.
It was not
when you start the game, your first mission is literally a car ride that lasts 10 minutes, where all you can do is move the camera, to a forced walking sequence right after that, to immediately a stealth section after that. It's like you actually don't get full running gun control over your character for like the first half hour of the game.
Yes, I know, but for the most part, that is
exactly the kind of things you hate about it.
It is, but my point is, it didn't persist throughout the game.
No, it did not persist throughout.
Though I will say, the car, this was a very dumb decision. Multiple times in this game, they stick you in a car and make you drive while exposition is happening. You can try and argue that you're playing the game. You're really not. This is a cutscene that is just glorified because they took away the bars and allowed you slight control, but nothing happens for minutes. This is not like 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Minutes of time where you're traveling from point A to point B with nothing in between but characters yakking at you.
In the backseat, yeah.
Bad decision. I'm sorry. I can't get behind that. But I'd say 2 stars because it does function.
All right, so 1.5 stars from me, 2 stars from you. Never did I think I would live to see the day you rated a game higher than me. I never saw that happening. Well, anyway, thank you for listening to us rant about all things not awesome about Battlefield Hardline. Once again, this is Different Beat. I'm Tim.
I'm Elizabeth.
And have an awesome day.